Hello, and bienvenidos to this episode of Voces, the official Hola at IBM podcast that brings our Hispanic and Latino communities of IBM together to share authentic, accessible, and informal conversations, amplifying critical leadership messages on culture, career, well-being, business, and technology. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of IBM.
Hi, everyone. I'm Priscilla Garza, a senior consultant for IBM's Global Finance Transformation Practice. Welcome to another episode of Voces. Today, we're joined by Milka Santana, who will be talking to us today about a lot of topics around entrepreneurship, women, Hispanic opportunities, and challenges. And so before we get started, Milka, thank you so much for joining us today. Would you mind, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your background?
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm so excited to speak to all of you. So a little bit about myself. I've had a little bit of a crazy life. I've lived my entire life in 7 countries, was born in the Dominican Republic, moved as an immigrant, as a lot of people, moved to New York when I was young, a lot of Latin people, grew up there and then moved to Europe for a bit, and then Asia as well, and then went to the West Coast to find myself now back where I grew up in the Dominican Republic in the same village. So it's a long story. But basically my background is mainly in banking and then later on in technology.
Wow. So you've had a vast amount of experience geographically as well. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm born and raised here in Texas and I'm here in New York. So I'm getting a little bit of this, Latino flair in New York. It's great. It's so diverse. It's wonderful.
100%, New York all the way. When I go back to New York, I'm always like, oh my God, I love it. And the people, the Hispanic people in New York make New York what it is. I'm sorry.
It's great.
Everybody always says, the diversity obviously is what makes New York what it is. But I have to say it to my Latin people.
I love it. Yes. So how would you describe yourself to our audience here today, or how would others describe you?
Well, that's a very good question. So I think that I'm extremely passionate, a little bit crazy, very creative, and very analytical at the same time. So when I was in school, I majored in finance and mathematics. And then later on, and I spent my probably like 10 years working in banking. So very much into that side of being very analytical, but then at the same time, especially with Perfecto Labs, found myself touching into that creative side, that innovative side. I love to pride myself in the fact that I'm driven more by faith, by purpose, by mission than by anything else.
In true Latino fashion, I'm sure. Yes. So you mentioned Perfecto Labs, and I know you also mentioned your passion and your creativity. I think all of that really drove your entrepreneurship spirit, right? So for the listeners as well, would you mind giving us an introduction to Perfecto Labs and where the crucial moment that sparked this initiative to become what it is today?
So let me give you all a brief description of what Perfecto Labs is. It is a school and a foundation that teaches children in Latin America, starting in the Dominican Republic, coding and English. That's what we focus on. It's very much driven by technology. So we focus on coding, but we also teach them other types of technology, like 3D printing, and digital marketing and other things like that. So what drove me, what was the pivotal moment that that made me take that turn. So before I did Perfecto Labs, I was mainly doing banking, right? So it was really a big shift. And just to give you guys an idea of what a big shift this was, I spent most of my life, whether it was in the US, in Europe, or in Asia, I was always living in cities, right? And it wasn't until when my father passed away in 2020, a couple of years ago, where I decided to move back to the village that I grew up in to actually start Perfecto Labs. So I would say that I've always have been driven by a bigger mission than myself. I know my life means something that is bigger than just this particular body, right? But then also my father passing away made me realize, like so many Latinos, you know, we just spend our lives working. Like we work so hard for the next thing because our parents, you know, had a very hard time because we're immigrants. That's what we do. That's what immigrants do. We just work really hard. We work really hard. And I saw my father working his entire life really, really hard for us. And then he passed away. And then it was like, wow, like, what do I want my life to mean? And if I get to be CFO of a banking institution, what does that mean when I know the problems that matter to me? And at that time, I wasn't doing anything to address them. So that's how it all started.
Right. You know, you touched on this sense of the immigrant experience, and this concept of, like, you know, we work, we grind, we hustle, and naturally, I think our Latino roots make us really warm and passionate and loving. And I think it makes a wonderful combination for a leader. And, you know, these are probably qualities that you're able to bring to your team. You know, as you start to gather and assemble your team at Perfecto Labs and lead these kids who are a part of this, you know, this wonderful school. I want to hear more about the kids themselves. You know, how you said you teach technology, math, but you focus but you don't just focus on the coding aspect, right? Because I think, as you've mentioned, you know, this all-encompassing approach of being a holistic person really changes your future and how you look at things. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about the things that you're teaching these kids and why it's important?
So the project really started mainly with coding and English, and then it really merged or grew into something bigger. The reason that it grew into something bigger was that I realized that not all of us were born to be software engineers, right? There's that. And there's other amazing skills in life that don't have to be with software engineers, although we do focus it. All of our kids learn to code. All of our kids learn to code. But then I realized that obviously not everybody was going to be a software engineer. And not only that, I realized that technology really has infiltrated every single part of our lives, and that Absolutely. It is expressed in so many different ways. And I wanted to communicate that to our kids, that it wasn't either coding or not technology. It was coding, or like I said, 3D printing, or art using artificial intelligence, or music. We are using a platform that uses JavaScript to code music, or all these other things that, you know, we know, you and me know, that it doesn't matter if you're a child now and you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, you will be extremely impacted by technology. So we added, you know, our core curriculum is coding, and we do that through robotics. But we also added a lot of other types of curriculum. We do digital painting, and we just like to allow children to be children, you know? Like, I think that sometimes when we have children learning to code, I've seen people put them like in these offices, like they're actually like going to be grown-ups, and like, okay, that's, we're like preparing them like little machines to like be a worker. Where at the same time, I mean, our kids are from 7 to 17 years old.
Wow.
Like they need to have fun. They need to be creative. They need to be analytical. They need to solve problems. And for
Absolutely.
that, yes, you could do it through coding, but you could do it through working in teams. You could do it through figuring out puzzles. You could do it through, we have a bunch of the cubic here, the cubic, I don't know how you call them, that they solve them. So there's so many through games that you could develop those skills. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. You're teaching children to be professionals, but at the same time, do it and enjoy themselves, because even just, I think about my job and I think about what IBM does is work can consume you, right? Like you can just be siloed and focused in one area and say, this is the end all be all. But in reality is, we just went through a pandemic, like our lives, our health, our mental health, our physical health, all of that is important. And by having these activities, I think we're very reminded of our humanness, but also just, our interest in what we're good at. And I love that your approach doesn't just focus on, one way fits all. So that's wonderful to hear. I know being Women's History Month coming up and celebrating it, I do want to touch on the girls at your school. I'm sure you have had your experiences and you hear so many stories. And then also just being a woman yourself, it makes you like really, a prideful thing to see the women in DR, coming up with some of these skill sets. So, tell us a little bit about some of the girls and what you've noticed in your job.
Oh God, the girls. So last year we had about 64% that were girls. This year is about 60, I think. And by the way, this year we have 80 students, and we have committed to growing our program to 1,000 students by the end of the year. So we are growing extremely quickly, and next year, hopefully we'll be expanding to other countries in Latin America. So the girls inspire me. The girls inspire me because I realize that in the Dominican Republic and in countries throughout the world, we are not giving them enough. We are not giving them the tools that they need to, succeed, but also to be confident and be themselves. We're just not. At the same time, they inspire me because in spite of that, they still manage to be brilliant. I mean, if you meet some of the girls here, they've lived in villages or towns. They have never coded before, and after a 10-month program, they're like, taking over Python kind of thing. So when I speak about girls and just our kids in general, I think the interesting part is realizing how little it takes to give them for them to just be brilliant.
Right. Mm-hmm. Wow, it's wonderful to hear. It's always special to hear these stories because we look back and we think, that was us one day. And someone actually gave us the tools to be able to learn and to be here and to lead teams. And so, it's just as important for us to be doing that to others. So I wanted to get your take because you have a corporate background coming from, banking, and then now you're doing your entrepreneurship, engagements and all of that. And how important is it to, you have your 9-to-5 job, but how important is it to sort of encompass some of these other organizations like yourself and volunteer or help? Like, does it truly make a difference in, one, your work life, but two, in sort of the way that you start thinking about your job and your life and things like that?
Of course. I mean, you realize we have, by the way, we're in a random town here in the Dominican Republic, but we have a lot of visitors that come, some people from IBM, some people from all types of tech organizations in the US. Most of them Hispanics, and they come to the school and they see the kids. And it kind of makes you appreciate your own life, because you realize that, we're always as Hispanics sometimes saying, in the US, this is, maybe there's some imperfections, let's say, that need to be corrected. Right. But I feel like, when you see kids in such difficult circumstances sometimes, to be honest, and they're still trying their hardest and they're still thriving and they're still wanting to better the lives of themselves and their families, then you go back. Imagine, after working all day, in an office, which I've done, then you go back to the office and you see things a little bit different. And you do your work maybe sometimes a little bit with a little bit more purpose than what you otherwise would have.
That's a good point. And did I hear correctly that you said that some people who visit the DR will sometimes go and help at Perfecto Labs? Tell us a little bit about that. I'm sure you get people who come to you and say, hey, I don't live there, but I'm visiting for some time because my family is there. How can I get plugged in? So would you mind giving us a little intel as to how we can, stay up to date with your...
Oh, absolutely. So you could go to our website, and it's perfectolabs.org, and, connect with us. We have an Instagram page, Perfecto Lab Coding. Basically, you just contact us, and obviously, we'll have to know you some way. And then, because we are dealing with kids, so we cannot just have anybody come in. But, after, maybe speaking with you a little bit, then absolutely you could visit our school. Another really cool thing that's happening is that this summer, July, we're having an event that is called Perfecto Jam, where we're having a 3-day hackathon that we're inviting anybody to volunteer. So if you're interested, go to our website, perfectolabs.org, and you could sign up for a 3-day hackathon to mentor one of our kids.
That's amazing. And is this all done in person, or can this be done in virtual? Okay, in person.
So this is all, the experience is going to be in person. We do also have opportunities to volunteer if anybody's interested to, if they know coding. We teach JavaScript and Python. Wow. So if they know that, or we're going to start a class in artificial intelligence. If you know any of these topics and you want to do something virtually, absolutely, we would definitely take advantage of that.
For sure, let's get some IBMers out there. I'm sure it would be wonderful, to see it all come into fruition. So I want to pivot a little bit, talk about, Hispanics in the workforce and success, and how we can, what you think the main advantages are as Hispanics that we can leverage to bring success to, whether it be our work teams, whether it be our volunteer teams, whatever it may be. What are some of those things that, are our advantages as a culture and as a community?
I love this question, by the way, because I always think that, for everything, there's advantages. I remember being in banking and starting my career in an investment bank and being awkward or feeling bad because I had an accent. Yeah. And then, I don't know, 10, 15 years later, realizing this could actually be a strength, because in all the calls, people know that I'm the one. Everybody knew me because it's the girl with the accent. And I love focusing on things that actually bring benefit. So what are the things? I think that ultimately, whether you're Hispanic or whoever you are, the most, you hear this all the time, but seriously, and it's harder than what you think, but it's to be your authentic self. Now, it sounds easy, and I'm telling you that it's harder than what it is, because when I was in banking, I was not my authentic self. Because you feel like you have to hide so much of yourself. You feel like you have to hide your mannerisms. Like for me, I had to like straighten my hair. You have to do all these things to fit in. And I'm not saying that you don't have to, because I know what it is to be in situations that you're the only one that's quote unquote minority. But I think that if sometimes you just like a little bit like push the envelope a little bit to try to be yourself, you'll be surprised that if you're extremely hardworking and you're smart, things will shift so that people will know you, and there's those characteristics that you show about yourself that will partly define you, but in a really good way, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm like, say it louder for the people in the back. I love what you said about how, the girl with the accent, because I think a lot of times we're told things to be negative, like for us to perceive them as negative, but truly the power and the authenticity comes in like, heck yeah, I'm the girl with the accent, and I'm in the front of the town hall, sitting down, asking questions, I'm here and I'm available and I'm present, and people remember that. And, it turns into your brand a little bit. And then that turns into and it's just like this ongoing circle.
Yeah, absolutely. People throw buzzwords that I sometimes don't like to use, but it is being a little bit unapologetic. It is being a little bit like, this is who I am. I mean, at some point, people do have to just, especially the younger generation, like we just have to like just break the mold of some of these things, because if we don't, nobody will.
Absolutely. And it's very true. I think the coaching part is very important as well for leaders, who maybe, you don't have time to volunteer after work. You have kids at home. I get it. You have all this stuff, but take time to mentor, all this, the young talent coming up, or like the younger people in your community. It's okay to be unapologetic about who you are. Whoever's telling you that it's not, that's on them. But, it's really important. And I think even in your schools, when you're teaching these kids how to even use the technology or speak in these coding languages, it's bringing sort of that sense of like, I'm trying to explain this to my mom at home who knows nothing about this. And you're teaching them, it's okay to, say, I don't know how to do this at home. No one knows how to teach me, but I'm coming here for help. And then translating that and bringing it back home, and then teaching your parents or teaching your family what someone has taken time to spend with you. So I love what you're doing. I absolutely love this brand also that you're creating for yourself. So I guess I want to finish off here with just, a piece of advice that stuck with you as you were either building up your school or as you were building up your career in banking, that really just made a difference. And it's sort of the way you truck through things now.
I think I have to say is, the more I live, the more I realize that the people that are successful are the ones that survive, and it's kind of like the last woman standing or the last man standing kind of thing. And what I mean by that is that I think that sometimes we feel like you have to be extremely, extremely smart, and that you have to have all of it together, and and that you have to be like this idyllic person of what has been done before to be successful. And what I've realized is that ultimately what matters is that there are going to be times in your life that you just can't, most people will give up. And the difference will be, will you give up? For me, what I'm passionate about is bringing opportunity, success, financial success to children and families in Latin America. I will be the last woman standing, meaning, I don't know, maybe there will be 1,000 things that I will try that are not going to work, but I will keep trying until I make it happen. And that could be translated to anything that you're doing, because ultimately you see, in IBM and other corporations that you've been, you see people quitting or doing different things and change. And that's wonderful, by the way. I've done a lot of different things, but ultimately it's about finding that thing that you're like, this is my thing, and just going hard until you're the last one standing.
And that was going to be my last question, but now I have my last final question because this is something you just said. I think, the shift in how we look at things now after the pandemic, of really focusing on our families, really focusing on our health and what we're passionate about, what we're good at, what we want to pursue. You touched on the importance of finding who you are and really running with it, whether it be the current job or leaving your job and doing something else. How did you come to terms with the fact that I'm leaving the banking world, I'm leaving corporate America, and I'm pursuing this on my own, and I don't care if anyone doesn't believe in it, but I do? How that is such a powerful thing, and I'm sure you had a lot of people say this is not a good idea. Don't leave your corporate job. But yeah, I would love to hear how that was for you.
Priscilla, that's such a good question. Okay, let me answer that as authentic as I can. I think that it was because I realized that success defined as others did not really apply to me. So I think that success defined for most people is money and a lot of, and all this other, what seems as success to a lot of people. It's like, you've reached it, right? I'm super ambitious person. So it's not like I don't care about success. That would be a lie. I care about success. It's the point. Mm-hmm. But I was able to leave banking because I realized that there were other things that mattered to me a lot more than appearing like I was being successful in something that I couldn't care about. So I think that it's about realizing what you care about. And then the second part is about caring so deeply about something that it doesn't matter if your shift is going down, that you're just like, it's like, like this rapper said, get rich or die trying. It's not for me, get rich or die trying. It's like help people in my country and help people in Latin America or die trying. Like there's no other way, because nothing else matters that much to me that I'm going to spend my life doing something else, basically.
Wow, so beautifully said. And thank you for letting us highlight your voice here in this Voices podcast. And we are so happy to have had you, Milka. And I know personally, I learned so much, and I'm so inspired to take on the world now. So I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And all the best with your school and the work that you're doing. And please, tell us again your website, give us your LinkedIn, any way we can get in touch to help and follow up after this podcast.
Yeah. So my, again, it's perfectolabs.org. Our Instagram page is Perfecto Lab Coding, and our hashtag is Perfecticos. Those are our students. And thank you so much, by the way, all the Latinos community all across IBM and other technology companies. Not all of us need to move to a village to make a difference. You could make the difference where you're at, and you are making it, right? Because I point to people like you, Priscilla, and other Hispanics that I meet in tech all the time, and tell my students, this is what you could do in the future. So it's extremely important for you guys to stand strong, and not only to stand strong, but to be yourself while doing it, and to go all out. So thank you for the work that you do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Milka. And thank you to everyone listening. That's a wrap on another Voces podcast, and we will see you on the next one. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Voces. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube and Spotify channels. You can find us as Voces so you don't miss any new episodes.